Obaidullah Bahir is a lecturer at the American University of Afghanistan who's refusing to leave the country. He recently wrote, "If we do not take a stand for what we want Afghanistan to be, our children would spit on our graves." Obaidullah Bahir joins me now from Kabul. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you for having me, Rose.
You are taking an incredibly brave stand here. How difficult was it for you to come to this decision, even though you did have an opportunity to leave?
I guess the counterfactual was uglier. It's just that I cannot imagine leaving my home. I lay claim to this land as much as any Talib would. And if all the educated people in the country, whom I understand the reasons for leaving, leave, it'll just create an echo chamber, and then this society will never have hope of being sustainable.
Are there many others like you who made the same decision?
Well, right now it's mayhem, it's chaos. We can't really connect, so everyone is trying to do as much as they can. For example, there are so many vulnerable people that are falling through the cracks of this evacuation system. I have a student who is pregnant. There are other people who have the elderly or young children, and just the scenes outside the airport make it impossible for them to get in. So just intervening at times when we can make a difference for now is a short-term but important goal to achieve.
And you wrote in an article that the city had fallen before the Taliban had even entered it, and that it all happened so fast. What did you mean by that, and how did it play out for you?
Well, that meant that I went into a meeting, and by the time I was out, the world had changed. That meant people were running around, armored vehicles were trying to rush to the airport, and just the news that the Taliban had approached the city was enough for the armed forces to lay down their arms and leave their duty. That meant that for a good almost 10 hours, Kabul was completely lawless, and a lot of properties got looted, a lot of people were harmed, and then the Taliban eventually at night decided that they need to move into the city to protect the citizens of the city. So, yeah, it came as a shock, I reckon, even to the Taliban. They probably expected to lay siege to the city and negotiate a transition of power, but before they knew it, the president had left as well.
So what is life starting to look like now under Taliban rule, nearly 2 weeks after that tumultuous day?
The banks are shuttered. They slowly started opening up yesterday. Very few locations within the city. People are out of cash. The day-to-day commodities people consume are rising in prices. The price of the dollar has shot up. And the prices of properties are nosediving. People cannot sell the properties that they need to in order to get out. So, and they're ghost towns. There are ghost suburbs in Kabul right now where a lot of the rich elite left their houses filled with their furniture and just went abroad. And what's problematic here is, again, I come back to the vulnerable people. There are people still locked up in American detention centers as well. I fear that when the world's attention turns away from Afghanistan, there are low-value detainees there that have spent 15, 16 years in Camp Gitmo, and there has to be conversation about them before the United States and everyone leaves, because they'll just be forgotten. And if the United States could negotiate the release of thousands of Taliban prisoners, then why not release the people that they have held in captivity, that they haven't managed to file a case against for 15 years? And I think these people are really important, and engagement with the Taliban right now is very important, because if this chain breaks, right, if the Afghan state is isolated and becomes a pariah again, do you know who pays the price? It's the common Afghan person. They will not have food to eat. They will not have a life to live. They will not have an education. So there has to be sense from both sides, the United States and its allies, as well as the Taliban, if we are to move forward with a sustainable or even close to a sustainable Afghanistan.
So who do you blame for this turmoil in Afghanistan? Or do you see it as a very much shared by many parties? And do you think it matters now? It sounds like you want to move forward and figure out what the future of Afghanistan is.
The problem with blame and the problem with justice is that it sometimes contradicts the idea of peace as well. Because imagine this, if the Taliban say that, okay, we'll give people justice, those who were responsible need to pay the price, it will just be victor's justice. It will just come off as a crude way of consolidating power. So obviously, Afghan people sentimentally can blame. They blame the people they voted for, who just left them without a political establishment, without any military apparatus left in the country. The one thing that they could have done through a transition of power was to save the armed forces from disintegrating, something that had been invested in for so long. And then on the other end, it's the US administration as well. We didn't want foreign troops in the country. The educated people didn't want them either, but there could have been a better withdrawal. Biden says that even if he had more time, the evacuation could have gone better. That is a lie. It could have gone much better if it was done and started under the Republic. If they knew, if intelligence assessments were saying that in 90 days Kabul would fall, why didn't the evacuation start then? We wouldn't be running around aimlessly right now trying to put out a fire that was started intentionally, knowing that the fire was going to start. So there's a lot of blame to go around, and we're trying to keep our chins up and trying to play with the cards that we've been dealt.
Obaidullah Bahir, thank you so much for talking with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.